Linny.
Hi, Nancy.
Welcome to episode 79 of the Front Porch Book Club.
The Front Porch Book Club is a podcast that meets twice a month.
We like to dig deep into the relationship between characters and the worlds they live in.
Grab your book and iced tea and join us on the front porch.
Well, Linny, it's June, but you had an exciting May in Hawaii volunteering for the American Red Cross. Tell me all about it.
I had retirement plans, and one of those plans was to deploy with the Red Cross. I've been involved with them for about 6 years, doing basically local work. So this was my opportunity to deploy and help the people of Lahaina. The Red Cross has been there since August when the big wildfires happened, and almost 10,000 people were evacuated at that time. And the Red Cross is still helping people recover and providing still shelter for some people. And it's been a long haul for them. Maui is beautiful. The people there are absolutely wonderful and beautiful, but there is still a recovery process there. And the town is just going to take a long time to rebuild and get people back in. So you can see the construction is starting and some of the land has been remediated and progress is being made. Maui had a housing crisis, my understanding is, before all this happened, and extremely expensive.
Yeah.
The shelters that we have is actually hotel space. All the tourists fled, of course. Mm-hmm. And then that opened up hotel space for people. Mm-hmm. It was good to be helpful.
And so how were you helpful? What kind of work were you doing there?
Well, the Red Cross is doing a lot of work, basically at this point, overseeing the shelters and providing a support for people. In my role, I do mental health because I have a license in that. So it was basically meeting with people either in person or over the phone that had some challenges in that area, connecting them with resources, sometimes just providing support and options. Because the Red Cross is moving out of the area, and this is what we would do anyway, it's connecting people, not doing the counseling per se, because you're only there a short amount of time. You want to connect people to the resources so for the long haul, they have the help and the support they need. But, over 9 months, it's not just the tragedy, it's that life happens to you. Your loved ones can pass away. You can get bad news about things. You can develop stress from being in a shelter. And obviously, frustration over the long haul, and just life happens to people. So the role that I was able to do was just basically be a support and listen and refer. Mm. Yeah. But it's a beautiful island and the people are beautiful. The culture's more laid back from the Northeast. I was just happy to help, really, Nance. That was the big thing.
Mm-hmm. So Maui must have a huge tourist economy, of course, and a lot of tourists stop going to Maui because of the wildfires. So you also have probably a lot of employment challenges as well.
Right. It was interesting being in the hotel lobbies because the tourists were there and, you kind of felt like you're a little bit of a vacation downer when they see the Red Cross, and she's like, I came to Maui and we brought our vacation dollars here because we want to be support. What else can we, is this your donation table? What would you like us to bring back for you? And that's very sweet and kind. And out in the resort areas, there's no problem at all.
Okay.
You're not going to go to Lahaina. But the road that was once not passable, you can get all around the island now the way you used to.
That main one going through Lahaina that connects all the...
Yeah. The tourists are fine. There's not a problem there.
Mm-hmm. And they probably really want tourists to be coming back.
Yeah, I think it's still like that's the livelihood. But I think it's hard for them in some ways. It's like, well, the tourists are here and they don't understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of both ends of that.
It's pretty unusual for the Red Cross to be somewhere for this length of time, isn't it?
It really is. And with so many people still displaced, there's things that happen way above my level of understanding. But when the state is ready to take over, when the federal government is ready to take over, when the Red Cross moves out is complex, I think. But yeah, they're planning and telling the people it'll be June 10th. And then the state of Hawaii will be taking over.
Okay.
FEMA will obviously still be there helping people.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that the shelters are going to shut down. The people will still be in the hotels waiting for their FEMA housing, but it will be managed by the state of Hawaii, probably.
And that's because the American Red Cross is mostly a response organization, right?
Sure. Yeah. We're usually not in that kind of situation. This was my first appointment, but they said this is so unlike any other thing. You know, the whole island just shut down. It wasn't just Lahaina. There was another wildfire there too, but it's a small enough island that you close one road down and all the tourists left and everyone got in their boats and got stuff at Costco and drove it over there, that there just wasn't any like food then and gas and cars. And it just kind of shut everything down there for a while.
Wow.
So I'm proud to be a part of an organization that provides care and humanitarian relief for people, and glad to have been a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so great, Linny. I'm so proud of you and you having the skills and credentials that they need to help those folks who, oh my goodness, a year later, still really in recovery mode.
Yeah. But there's joy too, because people were getting to move out, and we'd make a big fuss when somebody would say, I'm moving out, and cheer and clap. And there's joy too in people moving forward and finally getting approved for a house or finally looking at a place, getting stability. And so it's all good.
So great.
Yeah.
Well, Linny, shall we talk about our book this month?
Absolutely. Let's talk about it.
Okay. Our book is Hello, Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. And it's sort of a modern day retelling of Little Women. And of course, Little Women was written by Louisa May Alcott. I loved Little Women. I read Little Women probably when I was in elementary school, I'm guessing. And in fact, I read the entire series. Did you ever read Little Women?
No, I never read Little
No.
Women. I didn't read anything, but I did see the movie. And I know the characters.
Okay, which movie did you see? There have been a lot of movies of Little Women.
I've seen at least one of the Little Women movies.
Okay. So you do have knowledge of the characters and certainly the plot and everything.
Yeah. And you gave me a little prep on this book that it was going to be like Little Women.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't think this book is like Little Women at all. I don't recognize these characters.
I mean, it was more like, I would say, inspired by some of the aspects of Little Women more than what I would call, I guess, a retelling of the story.
Right.
There was just a lot of kind of shifting around from the Little Woman story. But I don't know, I think modern day retellings, now that I think of it, they're often like that. I mean, they are not templated directly onto the original source material. They take some liberties and set the ideas of the plot, like what would have been shocking, what would have been consoling in modern times. So it's not exactly the same triggers or points that are happening, but it's the idea of what that story is about, trying to capture the heart of the story, I think.
Oh, I did not know that. So now just you saying that's like, okay, see, I remember the father was off fighting the war.
Right.
So now, well, we're not going to reinvent the Civil War.
Right.
So now what do we do with the father to create a challenge for him
Mm-hmm.
and his relationship to his children. So
Exactly.
interesting.
A more literal retelling, he would be deployed to the Middle East or something like that. So this is not a literal retelling. It's more the concepts of four girls, four sisters growing up, some of the challenges they face in society, but also between the four of them, and themes of separation, certainly themes of the four of them being a unit, and certainly the theme of Laurie, who in Little Women was a neighbor boy who was very lonely, and him becoming a part of the sisters. So, yeah, I would say inspired by, certainly not a literal retelling, but I think deals with some of the same themes.
Well, I'm glad that you told me that, Nancy. The only thing I thought about this book was, oh, the girls read Little Women, because that's in one of the chapters.
They each try to claim which character they think they are.
They all wanted to be Joe.
Yes.
They really were. Okay, well, Hello, Beautiful is a new book. It was published just about a year ago. It is mostly set in present-day Chicago. There are four sisters, like Little Women, but so much about Hello, Beautiful departs dramatically from its inspiration. The author did not really set out to be inspired by Little Women, and she started writing the book in about page 100, which I was glad to see. Then she started seeing kind of the inspiration of the book as she developed the characters more.
So it is interesting that as an author, really, this did not occur to her well into the book. Hello, Beautiful was the 100th Oprah Book Club pick. It was a New York Times bestseller and a Chicago Public Library 10 Best Books of the Year selection. So it's gotten lots of praise. To me, this book, more than Little Women, felt like the story of how parents influence their children's lives for the better, and very often in this story for the worse. Of all the characters in this book, William Waters, the lonely Laurie-like character, and the four Padavano sisters each struggle with how to fulfill their parents' expectations and how that does or doesn't fit in with who they really are. So who are they? What are their parental expectations? Can they figure out how to navigate that?
What I liked about the book is that it happens over the course of their life. So you're picking them up as teenagers, being parented, and the way they are being parented. And then they grow up, they become parents, and then you see how they parent then. And sort of generational cycles that happen due to the way that you're being parented.
Yeah.
And the fallout of that and what happens. So I thought that was the strength of the book. I liked that part of the book best. But let's talk about the mother first.
Okay.
Because she sets the mom and the dad kind of set the stage of, these are our dynamics. This is how we're raising these girls. And then we'll talk about the girls. How about that, Nancy?
That sounds great.
Okay. So Rose is the mother, and she marries this guy who's not real ambitious, let's just say.
Right.
And she had some plans for him, but they didn't really materialize, and he drinks way too much.
At the time, she marries him because she's pregnant.
And that's a reoccurring theme. So I'm pregnant. I ended up with him. He's not doing too well. But now what I want for my girls is I want them to be successful. They're going to go to college. They are not going to get pregnant. And I'm going to raise them as such, because I don't want this cycle to continue. She loves her girls, no doubt about it, but she is distant from them. She's very rigid, and she doesn't really create or foster a sense of independence in them. She has a plan for them, and she wants them to follow it. When they don't, she punishes them.
Yeah.
She removes herself from them. She doesn't handle it well.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that creates a problem then in the next generation. For Charlie, the father, the girls kind of look at their dad, it seems like the way their mother looks at him,
Yeah, I agree.
until the funeral. And in the funeral, they see their father not from child's eyes or my mother's eyes, but from the eyes of the people who are adults in the community that say beautiful things about him, how he's helped them, his character, his personality, the person that he really is. And this kind of lets them see him in a different way. And he ends up being a very positive influence, I think, in their lives because of the funeral.
I agree. The funeral opens their eyes, and then they reflect back on all of the ways he really loved them and all of the ways that he took time for them and made them feel special, saw them for who they were. But as they were growing up before this, I think that their mother really discounted him. And so they just thought of him as, oh, he drinks too much. He really doesn't have a very good job. He spends most of his time sitting in the chair. But I'll tell you, the one thing that I really liked about understanding Charlie as a character is when he and William are in the car and William catches a glimpse of Charlie that leads him to believe that Charlie has kind of accepted this idea that his wife and daughters have of him as hapless and really unable to accomplish anything, and that he plays into it in a way, but he realizes that's not really who he is either. And when he's out in the community, he is a different person than what his wife and daughters see. And William catches a glimpse of that, which I'm so glad the author gave us just a little glimpse of Charlie outside the home. We certainly hear about it at the funeral with people talking about how he had helped them, but we get through William's eyes a little glimpse of that. And I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, and then the girls reflect back too. After they see him in a different life, they're a little bit more reflective, like, well, Dad said this to me. He saw this part of my personality, and he tried to foster that the best way he could. And so it kind of opens their eyes. In fact, the whole book, Hello, Beautiful, is because that's how he would greet his daughter.
Yeah.
Hello, beautiful. And I thought that was so sweet. And it just shows the strong role that he had in their life, even though they didn't see it as children.
Yeah. And I think especially probably because, as you say, Rose rejects the girls and moves away, she has basically abandoned them. I mean, they're late teens by now, so they're not abandoned as little children. So their father's memory is really the memory they have of a parent who really loved them, because Rose is actively rejecting them. So I think that also makes his role in their lives more prominent as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like the four sisters are reflections of their parents' dreams and disappointments in a lot of ways. So there are the four girls, of course. Julia is the oldest. She sees her mother kind of saddled with this guy who's not very ambitious, mostly just sits in a lounge chair, and her mom's frustration with this. So she decides she's going to marry a man she can make sure is successful. And she's very much a fixer and control freak. All of the other sisters, when they have a problem, they go to Julia because Julia will figure out a solution. She meets William. She's impressed by him on the basketball court. He's playing for Northwestern because the way he can direct his teammates. And she thinks, well, now there's someone who has some real abilities. But her marriage to him fails because she actually doesn't understand anything about him. And he is absolutely unable to live up to her expectations. She leaves Chicago with their baby to build a new life. They get divorced. This upsets Rose, but her moving to New York, she feels she's fulfilling her father's vision for her, which he always said, Julia, she's my rocket. Like she's going to go places. So she feels like I cannot go places in Chicago. I'm getting divorced. My baby and I, we are going to New York. That's where we can build a successful life for ourselves.
Yeah, and she does what her mother does. This guy that she can't manipulate anymore, she can't change. She isn't accepting him the way he is.
No.
And her mother didn't accept her husband the way he was. And so what does she do? She cuts him off, just like the mother cuts off her children when they disappoint her.
Exactly. In raising her daughter, she becomes very rigid with a lot of expectations like her mother was to her.
Mm-hmm.
So the second daughter is Sylvie, who is very close in age to Julia. I think they're about 10 months apart.
Nancy, we're 18 months apart.
Oh, we're like Julia and Sylvie. It's very close in age.
Yes.
Sylvie is the dreamer. She's the romantic. She reads a lot. Oh, she is like me. Growing up, she's always in the library. Then she works at the library. She loves books. She's a total romantic. This does sound like me the more I'm describing her. She wants to find the once in a generation love.
Yeah, but she kissed a lot of boys in the library and you didn't do that.
No, I didn't kiss a lot of boys in the library. That is true. She's willing to make out with them for like 90 seconds at a time or something.
Yeah.
But when she falls in love, it's with William, the ex-husband of her older sister, Julia. Sylvie and Julia have always been extremely close, and this separates her from Julia because Julia cannot abide that. Julia is also in New York, and she decides she is never going to return because of that. And Sylvie, who loves Julia so much, who loves William so much, she also really struggles because she's separated from Julia and William's baby, Alice. So she's also missing this child growing up whose parents are people that she loves.
She falls in love with William after their marriage is over. So it's still hard.
Right.
But I don't know that Julia ever really loved William because she never really accepted him for who he was. She loved the idea of marriage. She loved the idea of being a wife.
Yeah.
But she didn't really love him.
She really didn't know him, in fact.
She didn't know him. She didn't understand him.
She had an idea of who he was, and it really was not who he was.
Right.
Yeah.
Where you get Sylvie really accepts and loves him just the way he is. She just adores him. And that is the love that William needs in his life.
Exactly what he needs. Yeah.
Because he was not accepted as a child. He was ignored as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So he needs that unconditional love, like no matter what, this person's going to be there for me.
Yeah.
And that's what he ends up getting from Sylvie. So their relationship is very healing for him.
Mm-hmm.
It is the love of Sylvie, so much of Sylvie that she risks the cutting off of her sister to have this love with William.
Right. Rose, their mom, completely horrified by the whole thing. And she feels like they are just the topic of neighborhood gossip, and she's glad she doesn't live in Chicago anymore and that she's moved to Florida because she cannot imagine this. She cannot accept that this is the man that Sylvie has chosen.
Right.
So the third and fourth daughters are twins. So now this is different than in Little Women. There are no twin sisters in Little Women. There's Cecilia. She's an artist, and she wants to express herself. She wants to make the world beautiful. She becomes pregnant at 17. So here she is now done her mother's worst fear in getting pregnant, but she wants to have the child. She has Izzy. We never find out even really who the father is. It was just like at a party, a one night stand kind of a thing. It doesn't really matter. He's never really in the story. This causes Rose to basically disown Cecilia and her daughter. She's so upset by this that she wants to have nothing to do with them.
She kicks them out and they go live with the neighbor lady.
And the other twin goes to be with her twin.
Yeah, I thought that was lovely that they stayed with each other, even as adults, that they stayed connected.
Yeah. And that fourth sister, the twin, is Emmeline, and she's a caregiver. She wants to take care of others. She is very much the Beth character in Little Women, I thought. So I expected that she would be very Beth-like in her story, but she's really not. She is a, I would say, young adult, probably in her early 20s, when she realizes she's in love with one of her coworkers who is a woman. Again, unsurprisingly, upsetting to Rose, who just cannot believe she has a gay daughter. The sisters, at first, they're surprised, but this is not a thing for them. They absolutely accept her for who she is. And her beloved Josie ends up just moving in with the sisters, and they have a great relationship and foster babies who are in the Chicago Child Protective Service system and have a very loving life.
Yeah, I love her story. She's very connected to her sister, that is her twin, and you see their strong bond of love and acceptance towards each other. I probably liked her personality the best, and she seems to overcome challenges easier maybe than the rest of them, maybe accept herself more, maybe not be so bothered by her mother's dismissive nature towards all of them. But there's a confidence there, I think, that she has that maybe the others don't realize that she has, but that she, I think, feels good in her own skin, and she's going to live her life the way she wants to.
I think she does. And I think it's because she finds purpose and meaning in taking care of others. She does not have a lot of expectations that people must meet in order for her to love and care for them. She just loves and cares for people.
Yeah.
And that is the role she wants to play.
Yeah. She accepts people for who they are. And there's a sensitivity in that, but she seems to have the confidence too. That's like, well, mom has her own opinions and this is my life. So I'm going to live it. I'm going to be true to who I am.
She's a sister that people might think of as weaker than her sisters, but I think you're right. There's a strength in her character that is something actually her sisters, some of them don't find until later in their lives.
Right.
Okay, so which sister did you feel most connected with?
Well, probably Emmeline. You know, she's a very compassionate girl. She loves children. I always loved children.
Yep.
I really liked her character. I liked her calm way and the chaos of what is happening with these sisters and the drama that surrounds them and their mom and getting all caught up in all of that drama. She lays low. She lives her life. She falls in love. She makes her own plans, her own decisions. And just because she isn't maybe as outgoing or expressive, like I said, she has a confidence about her that this is who I am and this is the way I'm living my life. And her relationship isn't one that seems horrible, or I mean, they seem like they have a really nice relationship. Her sister Julia struggles with it. They all have these struggles, and she just does her life smoothly and easily. She doesn't even have to date a lot of people. She falls in love. She gets
Yeah.
She's hooked up now.
Yeah.
So she was my favorite. Who was yours?
Well, first, let me say I'm not surprised that Emmeline was your favorite character, because I would say Emmeline is most like you, being a caregiver and really looking to what others are going through and figuring out how she can be of help. And that's very much you. You're someone who does not create drama. You're definitely more someone who wants to figure out what is the path through the drama. How can we minimize the drama?
Yeah, we don't need drama, Nancy.
Right.
We don't.
So I guess I would say my favorite character was Sylvie. I think similar to you and Emmeline, I guess I do see some of myself in Sylvie. She loves to read. She has kind of these big dreams that she's willing to give up a lot for. But I, like you, just love the role that Sylvie plays in William's life. Her love is so unconditional that it heals this man who has such deep scars. And it's just such a beautiful illustration of love and what love can do in another person's life. Her decision to every day be that loving person and to be his love. He can be kind of hard sometimes to love because he feels he's so unlovable. So he keeps early in their love affair trying to break up with her because he feels he doesn't deserve her. And she's just very steady. And she's like, do I not deserve love? Because if you leave me, then you're taking love from me.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, no, you deserve love. And he's, okay, then that's us. And she just gives him that love. It's amazing, really.
She gives him that love and that acceptance before she even falls in love with him.
Yes, that's
So
true.
it's not even oh, I love you, so I'm here with you. We need to stick together.
Mm-hmm.
She accepts him for who he is almost as soon as she meets him. There's a connection there of, I accept you as my sister's husband, just the way you are. The whole family kind of accepts him,
Yes.
just the way he is too, which is beautiful. And that he finds it's kind of a safety net for him. It's like, oh, this is a family. They all talk over each other and they all are interacting with each other, and they all have these crazy, and they're very loud and
mm-hmm.
very different from his growing up. But yeah, Sylvie is a very likable character, I think, in the book. She does accept her sisters for who they are, too.
And I think she is insightful about who her sisters really are. I think she is someone who pretty quickly can figure out what people are about, and she decides to love them. Like with Julia, who cuts her off. She does not try to manipulate her. She just understands Julia enough to know this is Julia doing what she believes is best for her, and I have to allow that. And same with her other sisters when they're going through things. Even when she tells them that she's in love with William, she knows that they are going to have a really hard time accepting that. And so when she tells them, she expects that they will cut her off, and they do for a while, but she just accepts that.
Right. And I don't know that it took that long for the twins to come around and accept him. They already really loved William, I think.
Yeah.
But they have to decide, do I have to pick sides here? Where did this come from? How did this relationship start?
And they also realize that by accepting that, they're also realizing that Julia will be, in their minds, forever distant from them.
Right. But they choose love. Those three sisters choose love for themselves. And I think that's a beautiful part of the story. They're like, okay, you did this, but we love you. And it takes Julia her whole life to get to that point of accepting people just the way they are with all of their imperfections or what she perceives as people hurting her. Mm-hmm. And it takes her mom her whole life too, because her mom finally comes around and accepts her daughters pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much the way they are too. Now, Julia comes around quicker than her mother does, but still, you robbed yourself of all of those relationships because of the hurt that you felt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for 25 years. Part of that for Julia is recognizing and accepting the imperfections in herself. She wanted to be the rocket. She wanted to be successful. She wanted to have the perfect life. And it's not until her daughter Alice is grown and she starts realizing, wait a second, as a mother, I made some big mistakes here. And she starts looking at her own culpability in creating unhealthy life for her daughter, that I think that helps her to start open up and realize, look, we all have to make choices and I need to be there for my sisters.
Yeah, she doesn't really see that right away. It's the author is saying that the daughter is not achieving maybe as much, isn't like a superstar, is happy being a proofreader, and her mother had bigger dreams for her and thinks she stifled herself. But it's not till later that she realizes she is separate because of her hurt and her separation from her family. She has robbed her daughter of her aunts
Yeah.
and her family and her cousin and all of those family dynamics. And at the end, they all kind of come together and there's healing and all that beautiful stuff. But she does end up reconnecting, obviously, with her sister and realizing that she has made some mistakes in her life
Mm-hmm.
by being so controlling
Mm-hmm.
and not forgiving.
Right. So, one of the things that really struck me about this story, because I had read this was a modern day retelling of Little Women, just as I had told you, is as I was reading it, the four Padavano sisters, they're very important characters in this book. But for me, I would say the main character was William Waters, the Laurie-like character. So he's the husband of the two sisters. For me, it's his story that really is the engine. He's a very lonely boy who comes into this family. He has no relationship with his parents because of an early tragedy in their lives that really seals them from him emotionally. And that tragedy is his 3-year-old sister dies the same week he's born. And his parents are unable to even really look at him without experiencing the grief of this lost daughter. They pay no attention to him. They basically have nothing to do with him. So this is a sadness that he is trying to come to terms with throughout his entire life. And for me, it's that sadness and coming to terms with, is he unlovable? I mean, he assumes he's unlovable because his parents don't love him. He doesn't know how to really interact with people because he did not have a home where he was interacted with. The author, I thought, does a really beautiful job in portraying this. It feels like his actions, like deciding to divorce Julia and give up his rights to Alice, really flow from this because he feels like he's been a failure as a husband. He is unlovable. He has not lived up to his wife's expectations. She'll be better off without him. And whatever he does not want to ruin his daughter's life. So it's best that she has nothing to do with him. And he tries to take his own life, again, thinking the world would be better off without him. He is unlovable. So the book, I feel like, concludes with his realization that he has inadvertently recreated the same kind of separation with his child, Alice, that his parents did with him. And then he resolves to mend this wound. So for me, William was the main character. And then later, when we saw the interview with Anne Napolitano, and she said, yeah, she was writing the book about William. And then he meets these 4 sisters. And she's like, wait a second, this is like Little Women. I think even after she realized that this really is a book about William and in the Little Women world, it's really a book from Laurie's perspective.
Interesting.
What are your thoughts about who the main character is or whose story really is the engine of the book?
Well, I didn't even think about that stuff, Nancy. I was enthralled by all of them.
Yeah.
William is just a tragic figure in the story. I think there's insight into why I have trouble interacting with others. And I've always had this trouble. I don't know how to play with peers. I haven't figured some of this out. How he was raised, he's aware of. But he's so caught up in himself and he is so inward focused that he isn't able to kind of see the damage he's doing along the way because he feels so damaged inside, I think. And so it just takes him forever to see like what he is doing to the people that are around him, namely his daughter. He isn't picking up on the fact that he is repeating the cycle of abandonment and dismissal, even though the sisters are trying to say, please don't give up your parental rights. You want to be connected. We're not going to accept that from you. He isn't able to see that. And that just reminds me of depression. You're in your own little head. You're separating yourself from others and self-isolation and self-absorption. And he's just not able to see it. His is a tragic story, but at the end, he starts making those steps back. He reaches out to his first wife. He accepts a simple conversation with his daughter. It's not a miracle story. I'm glad that it isn't. That's not realistic. This is a grown adult woman that doesn't know anything about her father.
In fact, her mother tells her father died in a car accident when she was a little girl. So she thinks he's dead.
Terrible.
Yeah, it is terrible.
My.
The author is a good enough author that you understand why Julia does this.
Oh, well, yeah.
Julia thought it was for the best, and you understand why Julia thinks it's for the best, even though as a reader, you're like, this is a terrible, terrible
It's
decision.
not a good idea. This really isn't a good idea, but... Well, speaking of William Nancy and his lack of family, he is accepted as a teammate, and they do provide support for him his whole life.
That is amazing.
And I love that part of the story. I love that he gets in with kids at the basketball court, like the local court, and they ask him to play, and he realizes, oh, they're talking to me. I've been ignored my whole life. These kids want to play. Okay, so then he just shoots baskets and becomes, well, it helps that he grew tall.
Yeah.
But he's accepted in there, and he understands then that he can fit in there, and that kind of becomes his first family. And so thank goodness he has that, right?
Right.
But then when he has an injury, does that mean that this goes away? And for him, thank goodness, there are teammates that are still a part of his life that he played with that still rally around him. It's a beautiful part of the story is that there are people in his life that have remained faithful to him.
And especially when he goes to college at Northwestern, it's that basketball team that creates just a lifelong family with him. Kent, one of the basketball players, he ends up doing a work study with Kent down in the basement laundry room or something. And Kent goes on to become a doctor. And Kent is really his closest friend. And Kent seems to be the person who makes sure those teammates remain connected and remain connected to William, and that William remains connected to him. Because as a doctor, he understands William's depression and that he needs those social connections. He needs to feel responsible to his teammates and be helping them move or do whatever, just as his teammates are there for him and helping him through life's challenges.
Yeah, kudos to Ken. He was nice to him in the laundry room. That's just the beauty of the story, because you see even he evolves. Like, okay, we have to do work study because neither of us have any money, We're here on scholarship, so we got to fold laundry with the old lady down here. And they become, well, actually, Kent sounds like he reaches out and befriends William. Again, he's the one who's reaching out. William's just kind of lost, going through the motions. But Kent really befriends him and in a lot of ways saves him from himself many times.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think about the role of hobbies and friendships to help people address mental health challenges they might be facing?
Well, I think kind of what I alluded to before is people need support. They need to be drawn out of themselves when they're depressed. So many people who are depressed self-isolate, and the people that are going to care for you, the people are going to say, we're going on a walk. I'm going to come by your house. I'm pulling you out of the house. We're going to go for a walk. The people that call when they're depressed to say, I don't feel so good. I think I need to go to the hospital. The support system is just crucial. Kent, he was very knowledgeable as far as the med management part of this, and a better clue, I think, of what he really needed to keep him going. His wife had an idea too, but she would accept him no matter what. Kent was the one who was pushing him in the right direction to stay connected with the team.
So in Little Women, one of the sisters famously dies. And of course, that sister is Beth. As I mentioned, I thought Emmeline was the character who was most like Beth. So I thought it would be Emmeline who would die. So huge spoiler alert. It's not Emmeline that dies, but one of the sisters does die. And that sister is Sylvie.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I
Were you?
thought, I thought I knew enough about the book that I knew that Beth died and that she was the sweetest of the sisters and they just mourned her death. So I thought that was going to happen here. I was so disappointed. It would have been tragic if it would have been any of them.
Yeah.
But so grateful that a part of Sylvie's death and her passing brought the family back together again.
Yeah.
And William was the biggest part of that. He saw in this family this dynamic that he really wanted and that was missing in his life. As dysfunctional as it was sometimes.
Yeah.
When he got involved with them, they were a workable unit. Little dysfunctional, but they were all a part of each other's lives. They were all connected when he walks in. He sees it dismantle. He knows that it's an important part of their relationship with each other and who they are. He's the one that starts planting this possibility to get everyone back together again. It shows how important this family was to him. Mm-hmm. But it does show that now he's willing to take charge because he's kind of a passive person.
Right.
But he is willing to do something for his wife that his wife might not really want to happen. And he reaches out to Julia and says, you need to come visit. Now, isn't that an awkward conversation, calling your ex-wife and you run off with the sister?
Yeah.
And you know they were close, and you know now there's a big rift for these 25 years. And he risks all of that and reaches out, and it changes everything. And now you've got the change because now Julia's back in the picture. Now the mom comes to the funeral. Everyone is there. He gets to meet his daughter, which helps heal him. So his character actually ends up doing a very beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. I did like that it wasn't all sunshine and roses at the end. Mm-hmm. I mean, Sylvie's gone. And like you said, it's not like a miracle reunification of father and daughter and immediately they become best buddies. It's just like, oh, we're going to feel our way back to each other. And even the sisters, they're like, oh boy, mom's coming. Well, you know what that'll be like. They're all pretty clear-eyed about each other and the pros and cons of what they're going to bring to the dynamic. But it did end up being William being willing to, I think what he felt like, risk Sylvie's love so Sylvie could have closure at the end of her life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she definitely gets it with her sister, at least starting that relationship back again. She doesn't see the impact that it has on her own mother, and she doesn't get to see what it's going to do generationally to William's daughter and for the rest of them. But her death does create a reunification and healing for the family.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I liked about this book, because it does span their adult lives, like their young adult through mature adult lives, is that you get this interesting experience of being there firsthand and experiencing certain things with the characters, like them meeting William and William meeting them and William and Julia getting married and the first time that William and Sylvie really connect, like all of these important parts, you're kind of there firsthand reading in real time. Oh, these things are happening. But then you get them as they're reflecting back on those events and making sense of them. And I thought the author did an amazing job of them thinking through their lives. What brought them to this place? How did they come to be the people that they are? And just them identifying those points in their life and then kind of reconsidering relationships and the ways that they've behaved. And that felt so realistic to me. I thought that it brought so much depth to the characters and the book that they had this going back in their own lives and thinking about the times that we've already read about and reconsidering them.
So is there a part of that that stood out to you, a character doing that or a realization of a character?
It was really around William's character and him making decisions about why he married Julia and realizing that his reasons for marrying Julia at the time seemed like they made a lot of sense, but in retrospect did not. His decision to divorce Julia and give up his parental rights, his seeing in Sylvie this love and how he wanted to reject her but couldn't. And then Sylvie thinking about that time period and Julia, like that is such a key part of the story. So all of them reflecting about who they were at that time period and why they made the decisions they did, I thought were really beautifully rendered.
Yeah, I would agree with you. You feel like the character developments are really well done. You really get to know the characters. You get to know them over those important teen, young adult, and then them parenting. So you really get well-defined personalities and not black and white at all, but with struggle. And you see parts of them that really need a little bit of help, you know. You want better for them than what they're giving out.
Yeah. And then when they're older, they think that was not, in retrospect, what I should have done or said or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes as adults, they're saying, yeah, that seemed like the right thing. I'm glad I did it. So they still haven't seen the error of their ways. They're holding tight. No, I'm glad I did it. I needed to leave. Mm-hmm. I had to tell her dad died in a car accident. That was the best way for her not to be asking questions about him. I had to do it.
Well, Nancy, what an enjoyable book. I'm glad that she suggested it because I really did enjoy it.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I mean, as I was reading, I was thinking, oh, I wonder what Linny will think of this book.
Well, you know, I love a good love story. And it's true. About sisters, you know, and family and all of that good stuff. And the fact that the characters were so developed and that you get to really know them. And I love all that stuff. So next time on the front porch, we're going to welcome Ann Boyd-Rue. The reason we asked her to join us is she is the author of 7 books, including the indie bestseller, Meg, Jo, Beth, Amy, the story of Little Women and why it still matters. So we're going to bring back Little Women and we're going to talk to Ann about this book in relation to Little Women. So I'm really excited to meet her.
I know. And I do love Little Women. So I'm very excited to hear about her scholarship and why Little Women and the themes in Little Women is something that we keep coming back to. Like you said, you saw a movie and there have been multiple movies over the years that have been made of this story. There have been plays. I've seen musicals of Little Women. I mean, this is a story that we keep considering and reconsidering. So I'm very excited to talk with her. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Our website is frontporchbookclub.com.
Our episodes come out twice a month on the first and third Wednesday of each month.
See you next time, Linny.
See you, Nance.